Welcome to EnigmaCast, nerds. I need to get back to my roots. I haven't had a good old-fashioned talk about the Nephilim, Anunnaki, all the fiduciary that was taken out of the Bible. The last 2 weeks, as you know, I've been making friends with Jehovah's Witnesses. Wink, wink. I need to shake that off me a little bit because I've had just enough death threats to life, at least till the end of the month. So anyway, tonight's guest, a fellow Virginian who I just found out about, my man. Even though I just known him 5 minutes, he's automatically my man. Adam, introduce yourself, bro. Tell everybody about you, homie.
Hey, buddy. Appreciate you having me on. Adam Farris, writer, biblical researcher. 3 years I've been doing this and finding really wild stuff in the Bible and just trying to share it. And I got a different perspective, and I'm just trying to share it with everybody as well.
And by different, he means right and you're wrong, because as you know, that's how I get down. I'll tell you the truth. It's up to you to accept it or not. So anyways, Adam, good to see you, bro. Give everybody a quick shout out, your YouTube channel, where they can find you. And as always, Enigmites will put that in the description of the video below. Go give him a follow.
Yeah, YouTube at Adam Farris. So it started with a blog, which is eadamfarris.substack.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to stumble on stuff that I needed more time on. So that's when I put the YouTube page together. So it's really more in depth, scriptural evidence of just some craziness and lots of giants.
Sweet. All right, let's do it. So Adam, let's get into this, buddy. So you said you're a writer. So the stage is yours, my man. Tell me what you got. I'm ready to be wowed, bro. Wow me.
Yeah, appreciate it. So 3 years ago, 3 years ago in a couple of months, I was just a normal guy, distribution center manager, and that was my career. It's where I was going. I had a faith background. I was born and raised in the church. Left at 17. Had all the same questions that we all have.
Mm-hmm.
So just doing my life. Well, around that about 3 years ago, I was starting to really get burnt out from what I was doing. I've been doing it for 13 years and was trying to figure out my next step. And I was really, really deep in that. I've got 4 kids. I got a big life. So, it was a very important, I'm in my 40s. It was an important decision. Right at the top of that, my father passed unexpectedly, 63 years old. So it wasn't horrible health. And it wasn't very old. And it hit really, really hard, obviously. I was there. I had to be there, and I had to help through everything, pick everything out, plan everything. Ridiculously tough to be just kind of thrown into it. But I did what I needed to do and stood up. So while that was happening, I had this urge to write. Didn't understand it, didn't know what to do with it. And I was just writing random stuff and, trying to write a screenplay from a comic book or, I couldn't figure it out, just wanted to do it. So through those couple of months, I was dissecting David and Goliath. I just could not stop thinking about it. And, as life does, everything came to a head and I tapped out. I didn't know what to do. As a man with family, I couldn't figure out anything. Lost my father, because that changes us big time. All of a sudden you're the guy.
Yeah. Like I said, all of a sudden you're the man, right? Like you're the man, like you're it, right? right?
Yeah. So, and that's how it goes, how these things go. So I felt it, and I have a foundational background at this point. So I felt it, what was going on, and I could see the kind of patterns, and I just tapped out. I was like, I don't know what to do. I need help. I feel like you're telling me to write. So I'm going to do that. And if that's wrong, or if I'm doing the wrong thing, just knock me on the head. Show me what to do. I feel like you're doing this and I need help. So, if you can help my family, you got me. And I just signed up. So it started with, again, David and Goliath. And I took a long time to really read it, research it, and just try to find the pattern and what the story was about. And that's when the stuff started really to kick. Because as I'm researching, I'm finding stuff that you wouldn't, quote unquote, by mainstream see in the Bible.
Right.
Lots of giants, lots of people that weren't all the way human, lots of super speed and crazy stuff like that. So as I was doing the writing Five Stones, I did kind of start a blog too of just, hey, this was really weird and, blah, scriptural evidence. So a year and a half into this, it all kind of started to make sense why it was David and Goliath, why that was on my head and my heart to do it, is because that is right in the middle of the effects of the Gen 6,
Mhm.
the Nephilim and all that crazy stuff. Like first and foremost, the story of David's mighty men is a really untold story, but it's
Yep.
literally about a group of giants
No, it is.
and lion-faced men and stuff like that.
Yeah. No. And so, yeah, to interject in there real quick. One of the things that I'm a Christian as well, but I get mad at a lot of Christians, right? And when I'm in church, I'm always getting constant elbows and stuff like that. I always sit in the front row. And what I think the church has done, either consciously or unconsciously, is that they've taken what, for lack of a better word, I don't want to use the word mysticism out of it because it totally exists. I'm just going to refer to the word in modern vernacular as supernatural. They've taken the supernatural aspect out of the scriptures. And I think that they have done themselves a disservice on that, because when you push people towards Jesus and say that he can do all things supernaturally, but you give them no reference of any type of supernatural behavior that was, clearly present. And this book over here I have is the 54 Apocrypha, the books that were taken out of the Bible. I don't know if you've had a chance to read that or not. I plug that a lot on my show. But the story that we get is you talk about the watered down version of things that, Goliath was only 6'3". No, he wasn't. So yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry, but yeah, exactly. The mighty man, the tiger faced man. There was I think there was two of them, right? Like the lion. He had two of those guys, right? Yeah.
Oh, there's a bunch of them,
Yeah.
and that's the stuff we'll get into. A lot of them, and to your point exactly. So I always found it weird that Gen 6 1 through 4,
mm-hmm.
that was just a couple of lines. The way I look at things, and I feel like the way I was trained to look at things through my career management is to really dissect it and what are they saying, and at this point now, I'm in the lane that, like, if you don't, so Gen 6 is not just those four lines, hey, this thing happened a long time ago, blah.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything to do with every part of the Bible.
Yep.
And honestly, if you don't take that into consideration with these stories, the stories aren't going to make the sense that they're supposed to make. And I mean, ultimately, you're not going to get the right picture, right? So an example is, like, everyone's heard of Gibborim. We know that from Mighty Men. But there's also the word great. Whenever you read, oh, small and great, 8 times out of 10, they don't mean you're a good guy or you're wealthy. What it is, so Jonah was swallowed by a dag gadol, a fish of great size.
Mm-hmm.
Abram and Ishmael were promised to be over goy gadols, nations of great size. So Naaman, Barzillai, and Nabal, all in their own stories and their own books and scriptures, are referred to as Ishgadals, men of great size.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's just one example, but like all of the stories are based on all that stuff.
Yeah. And
so
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No, so like to interject there too. Even the description of David himself is watered down. I came across some scriptures, or someone was sent it to me. I can't take credit for it. Someone sent it to me and I was reading it, and I'm in the process of trying to, I try to triple source all my information I get. But they talk about David's feet, right? Have you came across this? Was in your research?
I have not.
Well,
I have not.
They talk.
Maybe hit me with it.
Well, they say that his feet reminded him of a horse's feet, right? Where it implies in these things where David himself wasn't 100% just man. He was something more to it. And it says that, and taking that on its face value, like, okay, but also the fact that, I'm going to dive into my scriptures here. He was the seventh son, and his father hid him away. Basically, he was separated from his other brothers because they had a different mother. And when I want to say, was it Samuel came to anoint him?
Samuel the seer.
Samuel the seer came to anoint David. He said, I think this might be in scriptures. Why do you hide your shame from me? Where are all your sons? He says something along those lines like that, right? David comes up and his brothers, and also if you take that into context too, David's brothers, he had at least 4 of them that wanted to kill him. Like he had at least 4 brothers that wanted to end him, right? And so yeah, this adds to the mystery. Like I haven't had a chance to give that any about the shape of his feet, but about how they hid David, about how they referred to him as his shame, how Samuel kind of rebuked his father saying, I told you to bring me all your kids. Why are you hiding your shame from me, right? How he was given the job of a shepherd, which was considered to be the lowest value that you could possibly do. Yeah. So, and again, even in the field, I think he claimed that God brought him a wolf, a lion, and a bear. He had already made 3 significant kills along the way. Right? So anyways, yeah, so go ahead, Adam. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes. No, you good, man. Yeah, he did. And that's some of the grit and the action that I try to put into my book, 5 Stones, was that he killed, at 14, he killed a bear and a lion by hand.
Yeah.
So that was something else too. Cause with 5 Stones, and we'll get into that, but I tried to hit a lot of different bases. And it's not just a book and it's not just the story. I tried to like get in between the lines and, like it being 5 stones, and it's misrepresented because we only hear about the 1 stone, but he grabbed 5 because Goliath, his 3 sons and brother were there in battle.
Yeah.
So it's like more than that, but plus too, like you were talking about. So at that point, he's the youngest and, and the runt, yada, yada, yada. Later on, Jesse, his father, has a daughter, 2 daughters. Now, in Chronicles, the Zariah is mentioned, and then I think it's Abigail, and then her husband's mentioned. It doesn't even mention that, Zariah had a husband, this happened, nothing. It just goes right to her. Now, the pattern that the Bible has set is that if you're not in there, you're not in there on purpose.
Yeah.
So much later on, so Zariah has 3 sons, Joab, Abiashi, and Ashael. They all become, they all kind of join up with David, being his nephews or whatnot. But Joab later on, he gets passed over by Amasa to be the head guard because Amasa is the son of a man.
Here we go. Right.
Right. And it's these small details, man, that like are super easily missed over because, and I've got mixed emotions on this of the reasons why, but a lot of times, like it basically doesn't fit the narrative. But what's the intent behind the narrative? Mm-hmm. Now I understand and respect the redemption part. You know what I mean? Because like, church and faith like that's specific. So you don't want to push people away with all this werewolves and dogmen and crazy stuff. Yeah. However, that is our history.
It is.
Right? Mm-hmm. We have pyramids that cannot be explained. We have Baalbek, right? Something too with columns, dude. I've been doing a lot of research on the descriptions of Earth in the Bible. And it's always mentioned as being on pillars or columns. But then, Deuteronomy 16, God specifically says, I hate columns. Don't worship them.
Yeah.
Like specifically. So it's almost like, because, evil is the flip of good. So is that what columns are? And is that why columns are all over these Roman temples and this and this and this and this and this?
All over
because
DC.
That is, yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Obelisks. So we can go down that road too.
No, yeah, you're dead on.
But that's but that's the pattern I started picking up was, Gen 6, super big Nephilim. But where did it go? It had to be more to it. It had to be. So I started noticing the pattern with kings. And if you look at in Exodus, I think it's Exodus. I could be wrong. I should have had that wrote down. But God says specifically, you don't need a king. I'm your king. Because remember, they picked Saul. They had to have a king, and even that's even Nephilim in a sense in that story, because they chose Saul because he was a goodly man. meaning he was shoulders to head taller than everybody in the land.
He was like 6'5", yeah.
Yes, and goodly comes up later on with David has 6 wives in Hebron, which used to be Kirith Arba the father of Anak.
Mm-hmm.
So one of David's sons from Hebron is a goodly man. And that goes back to like Gibberim, the other words that describe
The
giants.
Gibberim. Yep.
So it's all over this book.
Yeah.
But the king part, Ezekiel 28 and Daniel 10 mention angels, former angels that are now kings or over nations, right? Like Ezekiel 28, the king of Tyre, is literally a former guarding cherub in my garden. Garden is Eden. And you remember from the Garden of Eden story, the guarding cherub with the flaming swords. So that was a specific role. Well, that one of them angels come down and decided to be a king of Tyre and was doing bad stuff. And the prince of Tyre was getting rich off his special knowledge. Now, isn't that something that we hear about in Enoch and all these other books about special knowledge? Daniel 10 says, the angel's talking to Daniel and says, we heard you in heaven. I've been trying to get down here for months. The evil spirit over Persia would not allow me to come in, and I had to get Gabriel. So that's a lot to unpack there, because that's showing different roles, different strengths upon the angels. It's, why could one hold back one and then he has to go get another one?
Right. So
those are examples of what the Nephilim were doing beyond changing us. And then in the Living Bible, Nimrod is mentioned as the first king, right? Not just the mighty hunter. And now also the Amalekites. And I tried to nail this in 5 stones visually, because that's an argument. Why did God ask for, call for somebody to die? Like, that's not a God thing. Research who the Amalekites are. First, the lickers of blood was what they're like accepted as known.
Yeah.
So like, and they come from the Esau line and the Edomites and stuff like that. Now,
I actually think they were vampires.
There were nasty people. Yeah. And we'll get into that too. But like in Esther, the book of Esther, Haman is trying to kill a bunch of Jews, and they end up, having to take care of him, and he dies and blah. Well, he is an Agagite. And in the Orthodox Jewish version, there's a note for Numbers 24:7, which goes back to the story of Baalbek, which is really crazy with the talking donkey. But the significance is referencing essentially Amalek was one of the first nations. So we're one of the first kings. And what it is basically saying that my king will be better than Agag. So what does that mean? That Agag was known in the land. He was like a big thing. So that's more evidence of angels, beyond Gen 6 being here and changing and doing things. And then you, like I said, you apply that God says you don't need a king. Look how we're governed. Look how everything is. It's like, and that's why too, I feel like that's why there's such a hard push to, if you say giants or hybrids, you're a weirdo, you're a conspiracy theorist. It doesn't make any sense, because they're going to try to hide the evidence. Yeah.
And so when, and again, that's when I look into, when I started going down here and I looked into the journey, what actually got me to go into the rabbit hole full bore was the story of Jericho. How God said, go in there and kill everything. And it specifically says the dogs, the donkeys, everything, kill everything. And then you go in and you read about who the people were that lived there. And you have a lot of people, they call them fringe people. They were shapeshifters. They will tell you that's why he said you have to be sure to kill everything in there. In fact, I think it was Jericho where they didn't do it, and he made them go back in there and do it. I think they went in there, took care of the men, but it's like, no, go back in there. And specifically he said, don't take anything from this city. Nothing, no gold, no nothing or whatever. And I thought, reading that, I thought to myself, like, dang, that's cold, right? That's harsh, right? And then somebody does, and it goes bad for them, and he has the whole family stoned to death and killed. And then, but when you read then when you go and read what they would call the non-canon books, which I hate that word, by the way, you go and you read these books, and you learn that those were descendants of Nephilim, or those were something entirely different. That those were something that were at a base level. They weren't human like we are today. They were something else, and there was a reason why he said you have to kill everything in this city, right? And it never inhabited. I think it even says never inhabited here, never build anything here, never do anything here, right? And that right there, when you see that God's plans are, you're like, okay. And I don't like that when they go in there and they take those cliff notes out, because one of my favorite verses, I talk about this all the time, is iron sharpens iron, right? And you got to give the hard truths, man. It can't, yes, you can't, Jesus is important. He is the whole reason, right? But it ain't all about forgiveness and turning the other cheek in there. When Jesus even told his people, man, sell your cloaks and buy a sword. I'm sending you out as among sheep among the wolves. And meek doesn't mean weak. Doesn't mean bend over and get your head chopped off, right? So, yeah, and I think too, to add up on and to add to the your story there is about, I have my opinion on why they changed it, right? And I don't have any concrete evidence on this, but it was 100% done by the Pharisees at one point. Because the people that fought that war with David, they knew the truth. There was a reason why they just stood there and stared at each other, right, for the longest time. It wasn't just some big dude over there, right? Like Shaq holding a spear was not the reason why they didn't do it. There was reasons, right? They knew, right? And I think they stood there for like 20 some days or something like that, and they would sing and taunt each other, right? But as it goes down, and as David goes, and does his thing, and then a lot happens between David and Jesus' arrival, right? They build the temple, they sacrifice their children, they do exactly what God tells them not to do. They adopt, I don't know, I think it was Solomon got heavily into witchcraft, that's where there is no Star of David. That's totally a witchcraft symbol. So in order for them to continue to I would say not to push the narrative that they did all this as themselves, and so that you never hear the Pharisees or anybody talk about the mighty men or anything like that. It's the Jews. We did it. We did this. We did that. It was us. It was us. It was us, right? And I'm like, well, you had some help. I'm not saying that God wasn't there, right? So God gave you these people, but there's some lion-faced dudes in there. Well, and then there was a couple of the big guys there probably stole some things. I think even David, one of his guys, had 100 kills with 99 or 100 kills with a spear or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And back that day, man, you had to go undefeated, bro. You know what I'm saying? He was 99-0. Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, Adam, good stuff, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that too is, there's a couple different specific incidences where one person goes and like you said, kill. There's a one of David's top 3 kills 800 at one time.
Yeah.
Dog the Edomite, he kills 86 at one time, and then the whole town of Nob.
Mm-hmm.
So it's these few examples of people going in and doing it by themselves. And if you backtrack all of them, there's Nephilim details everywhere. Yeah. Like Joab. So Jerusalem used to be Jebus for the Jebusite, is Jebusite land. And Jebusite is one of the main giants from the Promised Land. And they actually they were one of 4 tribes that were not rid and actually got to stay over and live. So, oh man, I lost where I was going to go with it. But anyways, so you got an example with the threshing floor with Ornan the Jebusite, right? Oh, that's where it was, Nabal. So another example is from the Promised Land, Nabal, one of the Ishgadals I was going to tell you about. The normal story is, David's got his mighty men and he's on his crazy journey, and all this stuff. And they stop at the man named Nabal. He's a great man in the land, and he was churlish and evil.
Yeah.
So great, churlish, evil. Which is it, right? Now they ask him, say, hey, we haven't had any trouble. I was wondering if you can kind of give us some help.
Yeah.
And the guy freaks out, and it's a thing, and it's a thing, and a blah. Well, when you research it, he's not a great man. He's an Ishgadal from Carmel. Carmel is one of the lands from the Promised Land that were rid. And that's why they say that we never had any trouble, meaning, we were getting rid of y'all, but we let you stay and we haven't had any trouble. Can you help us out?
Yeah.
And he is also churlish and evil because he's a Calebite. And Calebite, you research that, that's the dogman stuff.
Yeah.
And his nephew, Othniel, was the first judge of Israel. And Othniel literally means violent lion of God. And the story of Othniel being chosen as judge even backs that point. Because, judges, the point of judges. Well, Israel finds themselves in 8-year rule from a tyrant. And they reach out and they're like, please, please help us, please help us. And it says specifically, God gave them Othniel. His spirit came upon Othniel. He was already there. He was already existing.
Yeah.
He had a house. Yeah. They knew him. That means that he became more.
Yeah.
And that's same too, like with Samson. He wasn't strong all the time. The spirit would come upon him. So these super crazy stories that just tie Nephilim everywhere.
Yeah.
And my opinion on this whole thing is, the other day I'm cooking and my youngest daughter, she's like, hey, we always talk about giants. I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, you heard about the woman with snakes for her hair? I'm like, Medusa, yeah. She's like, yeah, we're learning about mythology. And it clicked for me. It's like, I learned about mythology when I was a kid. Same stuff, same exact stuff. You're telling me in all of these years, there's been no development. There's no difference. We don't know any other, old religions and stuff like that. Like, we know about Mayans, but we don't exhaustively study them, right. Or, all this stuff. And you see the point
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes. So my point is, I started to kind of pay attention to those patterns along with the Bible patterns that I'm seeing with Nephilim. And history is told by the victors of war. Mm-hmm. You've heard that, right? Because you ask the people that lost the war, how did it go? Yeah, it's going to be a different story.
Yeah.
Federal Reserve, Rome, Mesopotamia, Egypt, all had the same logo, the bird. Mm-hmm. Freemasonry comes from Egypt. We know this stuff. But does it specifically? I get this whole King Nephilim thing is like those civilizations never collapsed. They changed for the times.
Yeah.
They adapted for the times. And that's why we're still here now being taught, force-fed, I should say, the mythology. And, it's just mythology. Well, then why are we taking tests on it? Why do we have to know this stuff?
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to keep this going and going and going.
Yeah, and to back you up on that too, they'll do it under the guise of what they call world history, right? Like I'm really big. I like history in general, right? But I'm well versed in mythology, lore, ancient pantheons, Greeks, Romans, and all of that other stuff, right? But around the entire world, everybody's taught those. Spain, Japan, you name it. The Philippines, Australia, they're all taught Rome. Rome conquered the world. Well, no, not necessarily the world, the known world. Well, you know what? And when you dig deeper, you guys knew a lot about it going on. But you're absolutely right. And I actually have a theory on the reason why they do that as well. Two things. I actually think Medusa was real. I think she was either some type of Anunnaki or I call them the Nephilim or the Watchers, a creation based on some of the architecture that I've seen, sculptures that look so human, and a lot of them are missing their hands or their feet is because they had 6 fingers and 6 toes on them. And it's like, if you ever look at all these amazing things, they're always missing arms or they're missing hands or whatever, right? Every now and then they'll slip up, like Buddha had 6 fingers. And if you go to Thailand and some of his temples, you'll see Buddha statues with him having 6 fingers. And then they changed it later to 5 because, he's supposed to be just like you and me, not walk. When they say he's literally walking across a rainbow bridge, right? So, and then you hear that, and then you hear that's what the Norse said their gods traveled on, what they would call the Bifrost or the Rainbow Bridge. But particularly on when it comes to the study of the Roman pantheon. And I'll just use Rome, but it was actually started in Greek. It was probably a lot earlier than that. And when you see that the United States of America, which hands down, I was just here on Saturday. I've been there more than usual. I've been in DC these last 2 months. People go down there and like, oh, look at the amazing buildings, but no one ever stops to look at what's carved above those pillars or what's carved in it, or that the world's largest phallic symbol of a freaking obelisk is right there. And it's because, and I'm starting to hear it in our communities as well, where they're saying things like, oh, the Anunnaki are returning. They won't call them the Watchers because Satan doesn't want you to think that they're real angels. They're UFOs, right? They're returning. They're returning. They're returning. And they want to be able to say, look, in the story that rolls out when they say that if you believe in the rapture or not, okay, just go with this, Enigmites. The rapture happens, and they say that those aliens did it, but the Anunnaki are here to save us when they come back, right? So here's this new space race, right? We all got to come together. We all got to come together. AI is going to lead us, and here's this new AI body, right? When they roll that stuff back out, that's where I think they're kind of like, plowing the field to plant those seeds even more. And I came across some scriptures in the book of Revelations that I never noticed before. If you go and read, it talks about the battle that takes place in Armageddon. It talks about that the crows will feast on the bodies of men and mighty men. It's in there, right? So I'd never noticed that before. And this was happened about 3 weeks ago. So when people say, oh, we're in the tribulation. No, we're not, because until the mighty men return on the scene to fight, we're quite not there, right? And then to go a step further, when you went to the and again, that is why they fight tooth and nail to do away with any type of giant bones that they find. The Smithsonians, I used to be a Freemason. I got out of it before I got too high up in the ranks, but I've talked about this all the time. The Smithsonian Institute is the Freemason men in black. Every time they come across giant bones, they'll rush in, and if they can't say it's Native American land and close you off, they'll take them, and I don't know where they end up, but you'll never find them or whatever, because the first giant that they find proves everything you said is right. You have to go back and hit everything. If they find one, well, that would make sense. That's how they made, and that's how they moved 1 trillion tons worth of granite to build a freaking pyramid, or a power plant is what it really is, man, or an AI computer or whatever you want to call it, right? But if they find that one thing, bro, that's why they will take you out, man. Grand Canyon, there's so much the Grand Canyon cover-ups they do, man. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, well, dude, Goliath's son, 6 fingers on every hand, 6 toes on every foot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the way I look at this thing, I try to look at it as like real as possible. And, I try to stay away from any hypotheticals or metaphysical, any of that crazy stuff. Just plain and simple genealogy.
Yeah.
And so right off the bat with lion men, they were in Sodom, and the angels blinded all the small and the great. In Hebrew, that's Katan or Gadol, meaning all the small people and all the people of great size. So that puts Nephilim there in Sodom, and that's where Lot, and then that story, and then lion men come from there. Then later on, David has the Gadites, 11 Gadite warriors that join his 37 mighty men, with the faces of lions. So that would suggest that they were intermarrying, and that was a big thing. Why intermarriage was so bad was because it was specific to these tribes.
Yeah.
Because again, to look at it black and white, human race was just under attack completely, and everyone had different motives, right? Like going back to mythology, Isaiah 34:14 mentions the Seir, the he-goat. So to me, you've got 6 fingers every hand, and then you've got a he-goat. Well, we see both of those in different parts with mythology and stuff like that, right? You got the he-goat and Pan and all that crazy stuff. So who's to say that these entities weren't literally just getting in a boat, hopping over, going somewhere else, and be like, "Hey, I'm a god, follow me,"
Oh,
and
for
they
sure.
start right,
Yeah.
and then God's like in Exodus, standing stones and faith markers. That was a big thing. Jacob anointed the stone that he slept on, turned it up, and it was a faith marker. Evil is the flip of good. You mentioned the obelisk in DC. Eventually, a pattern with standing stone starts where they're in front of a temple. Not only just a faith marker, they're in front of a temple. And specifically, God said, don't use tools on these. They will become unclean and unfit, just as is, right? Because, he made stones, anyways, blah. So then you see obelisks in front of the Capitol. So boom, right? And
Yeah.
it's a temple. Oh my gosh. And then again, the and I hate this, because I'm human too, but like we need money. Money works. This is where unfortunately our civilization has gotten
Yeah.
where it used to not be and barter and all that crazy stuff. But so now they got us where they want us, right? Because that's how society is built. So it's like they're just blatant right there, the capital. And then you go down the rabbit hole of state fairs, how they were originally called festivals of Columbia, and then you got District of Columbia, right, and all this crazy stuff, and then the Arcturus star. Talk about free energy in the Chicago Fair in 1933. They isolated the Arcturus star and used 4 observatories to harness free energy to light up the sky for the first night of the
Yeah.
Chicago's Fair. So
Yeah.
just more evidence of them playing right in our face.
Yeah, bro. And so, I can I can add on icing to everything you just said there. I literally 2 or 3 days ago, I was driving and I was stuck in traffic, and I was looking around. I wasn't in a bad mood, but I was seeing all these people, right? And I was just looking at them. I drive a truck, F-150, and I was just looking out. I was like, man, all these people look miserable. Like, this is not the state. Now, we're not supposed to live in caves either, but this is not the state that we're supposed to, that we're supposed to be in. And then it was like last week on Tucker Carlson, I think the lady was talking about that we have underground dumbs with tunnels and everything like that we spent $42 trillion on. It's like 42 trillion of our $47 trillion was spent, and that they use that free energy technique down there, and that they have these railway systems. And again, today, I don't know if Joe Rogan has been tapped to release, but he is, I think it was yesterday or today, probably yesterday actually, he was destroying that fossil fuels are from dinosaur bones and plants, and that's a naturally occurring something from the earth. And when I see this, and again, and people, if you don't understand what he's talking about, the District of Columbia and all this other stuff, I tell people this all the time. Just because you don't believe doesn't mean that these psychos don't believe. They 100% believe what they're doing, right? And they will do everything in their power. Doesn't matter if you don't believe. They believe, and that's the thing. And when you're dealing with sociopath level narcissist, right? That's a deadly combination, right? And that's the links that I've came to, that they 100% believe in that, the fact that Jesus is coming back. That's why he's hated so much, right? And they know that there's going to be a fight, and they think that they are going to win, but they are 100% are preparing for this. And I actually think just in, this year alone, the UAP, UFO orbs we were getting slammed with in January, all these crazy fires, all this weather modification, all this stuff that's going on. There's something more to it. And I think it has to do with exactly what you are talking about. And I believe that I don't know, I just believe that we're coming to, I would say, a head, for lack of a better word, man. A flashpoint is about to occur of something. I don't know what, But this has something to do with it. History has something to do with this. Definitely has something to do with the return of it. And again, I think another reasons why they probably go out of their way to stomp out this information, because it shows just how low on the food chain we are. You know, you know what I'm saying, right? We are, and so yeah, and it just leads into more and more and more stuff to it. So yeah, man, that's a great book, man. Is that published, or are you still working on it?
Yeah, no, I put it out last year, and just been trying to like hammer it out and get the word out for it, and
Yeah. What's the name of
share it. 5 Stones.
5 Stones. Is it on Amazon?
It is not. It is not. It's 5stones.bigcartel.com is my commerce page.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like super grassroots. I probably should. It's really weird for me, man, because I feel like I should and I have to and I want to walk a very specific line with this.
Yeah.
And it's not a business. It's not like I'm trying to put a book out and make a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love money, right? But that's not the intent. And it's taking me 3 years to really figure out. Because again, like this thing I was just led to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't understand it. And that's kind of the way these things go, is like when, God's will, you don't always know where you're going to end up. And you don't know, all right, well, I hit this, let's check the box. You just got to like buckle up, tie your boots, and then like go with it. And that's what I've been doing.
Figured out on the way, man. It's figured out on the way, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I purposely try to take a different approach and not focus on it for the money, and I trip up. I'm human. I make mistakes constantly, and I'll just have to remind myself, hey, that's not why you're doing this. The point is to get it out, get people to look at the story differently, go back and look at it, because it's not the story we've been told. So yeah, I stayed at Amazon. I've just been like hitting it, grassroots, talking to people about it, and just the story itself, man. I mentioned the Amalekites, and something too. We were talking about shapeshifters. There is speculation that pigs, is actually a manipulation from Amalekites, and that's why pork is specified to not eat. Because if you look at the wording of not eating pork, it's not like there was a whole list of dietary. It was just like this random line. And that's how you kind of have to look at these things, is like, what are they really saying? So I try to focus on that and show these guys for what they were. And then 2, everything with giants, the Bronze Age, Iron Age, and the Sea Peoples, Philistine, all that kind of happened roughly at the same time together. Everybody was branching out, just trying to colonate and take over and settle and, do all bad stuff or whatever. Well, they happened to show up and see all these giants. And as you go through the story of Goliath with the Philistines, I feel like he understands that too. Like he never comes out and is he says it specifically, am I not a Philistine? Are you not a servant of Saul? So there is a speculation he was a king. I take it that he knew that he was a battering ram, that he was used for brute force. So in 5 Stones, I wanted to show that. I show that when the Philistines come and they're settling, they make a peace offering with this guy. He's ragtags, suit, leather and stuff like that. But then later on, he's in a suit of armor, because the Philistines supposedly brought, metallurgy with the dawn of the Iron Age.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how do you attack that in a story without like saying that?
Yeah. You
just do visuals. And that's why too, like, I feel like I did the graphic novel instead of like a book, because I'm not a book guy. Like, you give me a big old book, man, it's gonna be hard to get through it.
Right.
But you said, the visuals, I think, is super important. At least that's my lane.
No, yeah, for sure.
And and so I try to show too that like Solomon had 70,000 stone carriers in his tribute, which is basically forced labor. And then he had 80,000 stone cutters. So that's a very specific job, right? Stone carriers, 70,000. Now that transcripted labor were the labor forces from the promised land that were not driven out. literally Jebusites, Girgashites. Now, Amorites, Amos 2:9 gives us our concrete ratio. The Amorites were as tall as cedar trees.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? And then later on, David gets a Gibeonite, joins with his mighty men, and he's actually of the top 30. And his name, he's Ismaiah, one of the mighty men among the 30s. So it's like all these guys just everywhere, building buildings, being used as labor forces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, David in his council, he had a guy that was over his tribute, his forced labor. This dude's name, it's crazy. It's Adoram, Adoram, but it's spelled differently 3 times. Hadoram and Adorium. So it seems more of like a title or a position, but it literally translates as Lord of Height.
Right.
And he's over all of the giants that David's transcribing.
Yeah. That's just amazing, man, too. And again, that's just so the story to me is so much more better, if that's a real word. It's more better. It's so much more interesting. And when they just give it to you the straight truth like that, and it lets you know, but again, it's all done on purpose, man. The deception is on purpose. It's to make us, and again, I've had several conversations with people talking about it to make us feel that we're just we're alone. We're the greatest thing that ever is, right? And when you go into to look at what we've become, and I got to be careful how I say this, but our success and our advancements in technology has just basically turned us into slaves. It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because, they take 35% of your money for taxes, people. That's 4 months of the year that you're just working for free, right? And so, it's just, and that's just all it is. And it's for what? So you can have your internet. So you can go to that, that 2 weeks vacation, that 1 week vacation you get, right? But if they let you know the true history of what we are, what we've lost, not very lost. It was kind of like taken away from us. I think it's actually coming back though. And I do think that words have power. Words have meaning. And when people talk, I listen to the message that they're trying to get across, but I also listen to the way that they say it. And I'm going to use a term that caught my attention. When Trump uses the word, we're about to go into a golden age, right? A golden age, right? That's very strange. That's a very strange vernacular or vocabulary choice that you would want to put in. It's not going to be like this is the best everything's to be, or we're going to, it's constantly getting that word gold into it, right? And so when you look back on what you were talking about and how they talked then, when you had these leaders, especially when Solomon was talking and some of his things, the way that he said things were very specific, but also had like a duplicity to them as well, right? And so I'm very hopeful for the future, not because Donald Trump's our president, but because of the way that things, one way or the other, y'all, it's coming to a head. You know what I'm saying? One way or the other, man. Something's going to happen, man. And so, for better or for worse, if you want to take the biblical structure for it, or however you Anunnaki, whatever, aliens, whatever you want to do, man, something's about to happen. And I think at this point, man, it's almost undeniable. Would you agree, Adam? You feel that something's on the horizon here, like we're being prepped for something, or like,
Oh my gosh. So first and foremost, if you remember during the last, I guess the beginning of this last race, 2030 was constantly being thrown around.
Yeah.
If I see it 3 times, something's up.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually.
Dude, I was a trained distribution center manager. Like, that's the way I look at things, is super black and white. And, there's trends and there's patterns. And if I see it 3 times, which is crazy, when the Pope first died, and they were first doing the casket, the first initial literally, and I told my wife, I was like, all right, there's no way I just saw this. I get up and I'm just scrolling through, and literally 3 times I scroll the camera angle of the casket. It had a cross on the casket.
Yeah.
You've seen it. The camera angle was coming from the other side,
Yeah.
where it was an upside down cross.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like 3 times I saw that. I'm like, oh, yeah, check that off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And again, I've lit. In closing here, I'm going to try to say this nicely. Like, Catholics are good people. 99% of you are good people. You just don't know what you're in. They'll say, "Oh no, that is the cross of Saint Paul, who wanted to be." No, it's not. No, it's not. He wanted to be crucified. He wanted to be crucified upside down. No, it's not. So you mean to tell me that you would rather they're honoring Saint Paul and not Jesus? They're going to use his cross, right, and not Jesus. No, that's stupid. And I'm sorry if that word "stupid" hurts your sensitive feelings. You're stupid. These people are putting it right in your face. You do not get to put on a red uniform and above as a Catholic without being a Freemason. It's not even, they don't even hide it. They don't even do it. You don't get to be in that organization. You don't get to rise unless you're in that subset that goes with it. And a Freemason tenet, I've always say this, is that to become a Freemason, you have to believe in a higher power, not Jesus, not God, a higher power. Because when you get to the top, they tell you that Satan is the hero, God's the bad guy, Satan is Prometheus, he's the one that gave us fire, God's punished us, blah, 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 blah. So yes, you're dead on accurate. And I could have swore that dude died like 3 times, man. I don't like, every time I turn around, man, like he was dead. Oh, he's alive. No, he's dead. No, he's alive. And then again, again, I think Joe Biden's been dead for a long time. That's just me. And now he's got this terminal turnaround cancer, right? So that's just my own personal beliefs there. And I've seen some videos of what looks like people that are 2 inches taller than him walking around with the same type of build as Barack Obama had. I'm just putting that out there, tugging on a mask. Mm-hmm. Make it what you want to will, everybody. This isn't a go down a rabbit hole podcast, but episode at least. But when you're absolutely right, Adam, that 2030 thing, I couldn't wrap my mind like why they keep what's so important? What is that? What is that? And the same time they were talking about it, you had the King of England putting out his devil portrait that was red or whatever, right? Right?
Dude.
Talking about he was the descendant of Vlad the Impaler from the dragon, mind you. So yeah. And again, Enigmites, Satan is referred to as the dragon in the Bible. He's the dragon, right? So there's a lot of weird stuff out there. So Adam, before we walk this out of here real quick, I'm going to tell everybody, I think I know the reason why. Tell everybody why you name your books the 5 Stones, bro.
That was a defining moment for me in kind of waking up to this thing. Was the whole foundation of the story was off, was wrong, and being told wrong, right? Like literally all mainstream's telling people about is he grabbed 1 stone and he killed this guy, and he was, he might have been 9 feet or whatever the case. And it's like, no, he grabbed 5 stones because there were 5 giants there and ready in battle. And then again, they all died later on. So and that's why we want the name and the picture on the cover was, I'm big on, I want to hit you with it. Like I want it to be real punky. And literally I told the artist, because I worked with the artist, I did the coloring and stuff. So it was a tag team. But I was like, dude, I want when people walk by this book, I want them to stop. Whether they like it or they hate it, I'm not worried about that. I want them to stop and be like, what is that? Because, man, this is a big story that, it needs to be told properly because it has to do with, clearly, like we talked about on the show, it has a lot to do with our actual history.
Yeah.
And Dr. Randall Smith says it perfectly. Whatever irritates you the most is your calling. I can't stand misunderstandings, misrepresentation. Right. It drives me crazy. Right. So it's like, all right, well, that's what I need to do is just clear stuff up.
So yeah, That's a great point, Enigma. A lot of people don't realize that David went down there not just to smoke one giant. He went down there to get 5 of them. And that's what he went down there. And to me, I do not know why they leave that out of the story, because it just shows you that this dude was ready for business, man. He was about to stand 10 toes down, man. He was about to deal with 5 giants, right? And again, I would actually say that I try to visualize myself in that type of situation, right? Where he went down there and they were 100% were probably laughing at him. He was, he wasn't wearing armor down there with a sling. Now, I've seen some YouTube videos of some guys that can really move a sling, man. I'm talking about like really, do not break a truck window with it, like some seriously powerful stuff. But he must have smoked Goliath so hard that the other 4 were like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if it was the one shot, the headshot, the 360 headshot, Call of Duty style. I don't know what it was, man, or the fact that he walked up there and took his sword, man, and lobbed his head off at the end, man. I don't know, but he went down there, Enigmites, ready to handle all the big boys down there, right? And to me, I think that adds to the tale, to the confidence that he had in God. And I think also, too, that I think this is my opinion here. I think that not telling that part of the story is an injustice. Just my personal opinion, right? Again, Adam, man, got to agree to come back, man, because I got more questions to ask for you, man, and I want to introduce you to a couple people, and I want to bring you in on a couple roundtable discussions as well, man. So look, man, basically, dude, you're mine, right? Let's let you know that you're mine now, right? That's it, man. Let me know, man. So one more time, man, tell everybody where they can find you and where we can get that awesome graphic novel of yours, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it. 5stones.bigcartel.com is the commerce page. YouTube, Adam Farris, eadamfarris.substack.com. And I'm on Instagram, Adam Farris. Try to keep it basic. That's me.
That's it, man. Not hard to find. All that information will be in the description of this video. Adam, I'm going to reach out, grab that book, show you some support. I'm going to read it. It's going to go back there on my wall of fame, either on that side above the ramen noodles and my Jedi Sith picture, or it's going to go over there next to my Bigfoot or the gecko I brought back from Cartagena underneath I think that's a dog, man, back there or whatever. So, Adam, man, it's been great having you on here, man. I want to get you back. It's been a very enjoyable conversation. Enigmites, do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. If you got any questions, you want to argue, you want to fight, you know what to do. I'm easily found. Throw it in the comments. If I don't have the answers, Adam will answer it. Go out, give his page a follow, check it out. It doesn't cost you nothing, but it makes us feel like we're big timers, man. You know what I'm saying? So, Adam, got anything else before we go, bro?
Listen. That's a very important part of our journey in life, is learning how to listen, getting out of our own way, getting out of our head, and listen. God wants a relationship with us, but we got to meet him in the middle. We got to learn how to listen.
That's it, man. That's it. So learn to listen, noobs. And you know how we do around here, nerds? That's all you get for $1. We're out.
Subscribe now and turn on the notifications to join us on this extraordinary journey into the unknown.